open it?
Yeah, you can open it.
Can't see it.
Yeah, you have a lot of steps. It's crazy.
Yeah.
We can see outside. The view is incredible.
Isn't it? So we're here in Lawrence's painting studio. There's a photo of Lawrence, obviously, when he was working in the studio. And Lawrence always said to me when I started working with his paintings that his painting is entirely separate from his literary work. There's no connection. And I said, but the second word in Coney Island of mind is great. How can you say that they're not connected? And so we did a museum exhibition, and he came up with the name cross-pollination. And he really started to understand that he was doing something that was really special in that his literary work was informed by his visual art, and his visual work was informed by his literary art, and the melding of the two made a third thing that was different. And he finally got it when he saw the exhibition. So here we are.
So it's a mix media between two media.
It becomes the third
It's
thing.
like a child.
Yeah, it becomes the third thing.
Okay. So
This is his self-portrait.
yeah.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
And with a T-shirt from University de Paris.
De Paris. And what's funny, you know, artists always recognize this. I mean, he's looking in the mirror because Lawrence was not left-handed, although he'd paint with either hand. But he becomes his mirror self in this self-portrait.
And when has he begun to paint or to do some drawings?
He tells me that he considered himself a visual artist before he was a writer.
Okay, so before.
So before, yeah. So it's very near and dear to his heart. This is the back of the self-portrait. He always ended up writing quite a bit on the backs of his paintings. And this he had gifted to Nancy Peters, who has now gifted it to a museum.
Mm.
And also, she's gifting this painting, which from the back is also very interesting.
The back is interesting too than the front.
Yeah. Well, he just would paint and then repaint and repaint and repaint and retitle. And so every time he'd have to cross out what he'd put on the back the time before. So it ends up adding up.
Turn this one to this cover.
What these are, I don't know if I told you, but these, very shortly before he died, he discovered the undeveloped film that he had taken at D-Day when he was a skipper of a mine chaser. at Normandy Beach. They never went to shore. They never fired a shot, but they were there, and he took photos, and these were printed and shown in an exhibition. It was really one of the last places he was able to go. And these are all being given to the Smithsonian Institution at the Archives of American Art.
It's pictures from the D-Day.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. He also found his hat. We used to go out on New Year's with him and have a martini. And a few years before he died, he opened an old chest and he found his Navy hat. And so he wore it on New Year's for the martini.
And Ferlinghetti has a lot of influence of the European, notably France and Italy.
Very much. Very much. He was, a French child. He was a French child, and his earliest memory was standing on a balcony in Strasbourg, and there was a parade going by, and he was waving a little flag. That's what he remembered about Strasbourg. But French was his first language. Yeah.
Because his parents were French, or?
Because it's a complicated story. His father died shortly before he was born. His mother had 4 other sons, and she kind of fell apart and could not handle this many children. And the boys generally went into orphanages, but her sister, I believe, his aunt, lived in Strasbourg, came and got him and took him to Strasbourg and raised him there for 5 years. And then she got a job with a wealthy family in the United States. And she came back with the child Lawrence. And then after a few years, she ran away with the chauffeur and left Lawrence with the family, who took him in and raised him in a wealthy environment. It's a crazy story.
Totally crazy.
It's a crazy story, yeah.
And
later in his life, he met his brothers. But they had all they'd gone to orphanages. Some had come back to the mother. I don't think he ever met his mother again, but he met his brothers.
And you know how he decided to create City Lights?
It was just serendipity. He had just arrived in San Francisco. He was a confirmed pacifist, having been in the War of the Pacific and having gone to, I believe he went to Nagasaki shortly after the atomic bomb. He described it as miles of mulch, and he became an instant pacifist. And he was drawn to San Francisco and the ideas here, and he had just gotten into town, and he was walking up Columbus Avenue, and Peter Martin was standing there at the corner where City Lights is now, and Lawrence started talking to him. There was an Italian anarchist bookshop there, and Peter Martin told Lawrence that he wanted to start a paperback bookstore, but he didn't have enough money. He needed $500 more, and Lawrence said, well, I have $500, and that's how City Lights started. Yeah, okay. Peter Martin and Lawrence.
And you know how he met the B Generation guys?
He was a publisher.
Yeah.
And so as a publisher, they were attracted to him, of course. And he had published Howl, and that had gone to the, to the court. And that's very significant in the United States, because that trial, which Lawrence's side won, City Lights won, it was about obscenity. And what was finally ruled in the trial was that freedom of speech applies even to what would be called obscenity, if it has a redeeming social value. And that changed free speech laws forever in this country. It changed the First Amendment. And so artists, there's more leeway, basically, for allowing more explicit content, for better or worse, So, but, he's a hero also for that reason, is that he fought the good fight for artists to have freedom of expression.
And on the back you have some like poetry
Yeah.
sentence.
Yeah, and title it, then we changed the title and
The death of
Neil Cassidy.
Neil Cassidy at San Miguel. Very nice.
Strange bookfellows. I like to get better light.
And on the back,
Pyramids in the sea. There were different people on the ship.
Poésie, this one.
Yeah.
And this one have been already exhibited, I guess.
There was one exhibition, yes. Of all places, it was at the Harvey Milk
Museum or
one of the LGBT
okay.
centers. Look at this.
Thank you.
Mhm. That's what this is, we carried up.
They are great.
So this is part of the edition. They all have the stamp somewhere. Oh, there, from the Archidiocese. Yeah,
Mm.
AP 101.
It's an old dress.
Nightgowns. It was from, if you remember, I told you that his family had this nightgown factory that went out of business. And so he gave Lawrence lots of nightgowns to paint. Labels from the exhibition. So they're not, boats were a theme in Lawrence's work, and the sea as a metaphor for existence. And boats were the vehicle for traveling that existence, basically. So it was a metaphorical symbol, but also he was a man of the sea. And as a young boy, he would go out fishing on the eastern seaboard. And then as a young man, he was in the United States Navy, and he skippered mine chasers. It was a requisitioned yacht from Carnegie or somebody that he was the skipper of as a lieutenant, and they'd go back and forth across the Atlantic sweeping for mines. And then he was stationed ready for D-Day and was the skipper of a ship that went to Normandy Beach. They never fired a shot. They never had to get off the boat, but he was there, he witnessed it, he photographed it. And so it's always been, and then of course he's got a painting studio in a shipyard, an old shipyard. And so boats have appeared over and over and over again, and the sea, the two together, in his paintings and in his writings. Mm. Yeah. Well, now I talked about ships, but none of these are ship paintings.
A lot of women too.
A lot of women, yeah. Women and ships. He did 4 paintings of ships. His last 4 paintings. And this is one of the last ones that he started to paint over and left it like this. And then the one before this, it's interesting because this one is very, very light, very kind of translucent. And the one before it,
it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. It's a very dark, dark scene. Voyage. He called each of these Voyage, and this is Voyage number 3. Yeah. Were you able to get a good shot of this back wall? Because it was his painting wall, and it's just so beautiful.
Yeah. He used his wall for...
Yeah, for putting his paper or canvas against.
Perhaps you have to cut it and to
Take
bring...
it with us.
You know, it's sometimes we see that for street artists, as you know.
Yeah.
The collectors, they destroy a wall because they want the art on the wall.
Right.
But yeah, it's very, very nice. And
yeah, it's beautiful.
It's a story, an history of the paintings. So
yes.
he has like a spirit.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's outside of the studio. See the big ships.
Hunters Point shipyards.
So it was a military base.
It was a manufacturer of ships and nuclear submarines in World War II, and so a military industrial base. Yeah. And most of it hasn't been able to be used in recent years because of the radioactive content in the soil. Which is why the artists are here.